welcome to the Australian Music Vault, Courtney Barnett, singer, songwriter, gal about town. Full name, Courtney Melba Barnett. How did you become Melba?
I think it comes in two parts, but apparently when I was born, I was screaming a lot, very loudly, and my grandma, my dad's mum, Joan, she gave me the nickname. I mean, not the middle name of Melba after Dame Nellie Melba, because they said that I, sung out so loudly. So I think that's the kind of official story. And then the second half is that I was born on Melbourne Cup Day. So in '87 it was a Tuesday, and the 3rd, and so I don't know.
Melba.
Double.
Yeah.
I prefer the Dame Nellie Melba.
Dame Nellie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beauty. And what is it? Was it Dame Nellie Melba who just kept on singing?
The final farewells?
Yeah, the farewells.
Yeah, that was her.
So maybe that speaks to your future too.
I read a book, one of her biographies, and she used to, on the day of her show, she'd walk around town, and if anyone was nice or helped her, at the store, she'd have a little book and she'd write them a guest spot for the show. But she did it to so many people around during the day that they ran out of seats. They were constantly running out of seats because she's just giving everyone a free ticket to her sold-out shows.
Wow. I want to take you way, way back, and I want to hear about you playing second guitar around about 2010 with a band called Rapid Transit.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
I moved to Melbourne pretty recently from Hobart, and I'd been playing around solo a lot, but started working at a bar and had a little stage in it, and my friend who worked with me played in a band called Rapid Transit. I liked them a lot, and then he asked if I wanted to play guitar with him or with them, and yeah. And then that was kind of the first, I think, the first proper kind of band that I played in.
And it was his band?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you weren't really affecting how the band was moving ahead?
No, Chris wrote these amazing songs, and he and I just kind of tried to figure out how to play guitar bits on them, and it was good because I'd been playing my own songs by then solo, but it was really nice to not be singing or songwriting and just kind of try to add a layer to the songs without, I guess being that kind of the painter in the corner.
And that's Chris?
You know what? His surname Cicchini, but I never knew if I was saying it properly. We called him American Chris.
Perfect. So you had some songs and you were playing when you were living in Hobart. So you were doing some gigs?
Yeah, I did my first gigs at the open mic night, the Lark Distillery in Hobart, when I was maybe 18.
And can you remember some of the songs you played?
Yeah, Terrible Love. There was always someone I was in love with, and they'd come to the show and I'd sing the song so that they would hear it and hopefully they'd fall in love with me, and it didn't work, but it was those kind of songs.
Must have worked occasionally.
I don't know.
Surely. Any covers were you doing, or all original?
I feel like I had a cover of Ricky Lee Jones / Daryl Braithwaite, Horses.
Yeah, okay.
That popped up sometimes.
Great.
Yeah.
And any of those original songs are still part of your world now?
No, none of those songs. I recorded them and on my little setup that I had at home, and then moved on.
And then moved on.
Yeah, I think, yeah. they were okay, but they were nothing special.
Yeah. Well, moved on, you certainly did. Let's jump to your first EP. I've got a friend called Emily Ferris with some great titles there, Lance Jr., Scotty Says, Ode to Odetta. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm wondering, is that Odetta the incredible folk singer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was working at that bar with Chris, it was next door to a record store, like a secondhand record store, and I just watched that Dylan doco,
yes,
where Odetta is in it. There's a bit, I forget what it's called, and so I found this Odetta record at the store, put it on the player, and listened to it in the bar, and then wrote the song.
There's an incredible record called, it's a tribute to Woody Guthrie that Dylan plays with the band, and Odetta is on there, and she's remarkable.
Yeah.
What can you remember about recording I've Got a Friend Called Emily Ferris?
We recorded it live in one day in a friend's lounge room, and I was working at the Northcote Social Club, and I was supposed to start work at 5 or 6, like the evening shift. And so it was a bit stressful, but, we had the majority of the day. It was fun. I remember it being pretty kind of laid back, and then I think I called in sick at the last minute so we could finish the recording.
Really?
Yeah.
Was there a sense of excitement there? Was there a sense at that point of you thinking, okay, this is where I'm going with my life, or was it not perhaps that thought out?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to make music, so I felt excited to be doing it, and to be, that was kind of the first proper-ish recording that I did.
Yep.
But I don't think, if you mean like with the expectation that it would get me somewhere, I didn't really think about that, but it was exciting to be making something that was going to be pressed onto a real CD. I'd done like burnt CDs in the past, and tried to sell them or like leave them in CD stores for people to find. But my grandma gave me money to press that CD, so it was the first real thing that I'd made. So yeah, it was exciting in that sense.
And was that the beginning of Milk Records?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Grandma, thanks Grandma.
I know. Thanks Grandma.
And you designed the little logo. Mm-hmm. In a way, you did that before you even thought of having a record company, is that right?
Yeah. Well, I think I'd done it a bit before the CD, for maybe on some gig posters to kind of, I just, would look at other things and see people presenting shows, and I felt like it added a bit of professionalism, seriousness to it.
Yeah. And was there a sense too, I think I read, where you said that the idea of milk, in a way, it had a double meaning. It was something like record companies are going to milk you.
Yeah. Well, that was when I was asked what the name was, I guess that kind of, people, milk you for everything you got. But I don't know. I don't know if that's, well, some people do, but some people don't.
Yeah. The next one, How to Carve a Carrot into a Rose. A couple, for me, of killer songs, Avant Gardener and History Eraser. Tell us about those songs, starting with Avant Gardener.
Avant Gardener was it kind of took a while to write. I kind of wrote it backwards. When we recorded the songs for that EP, I didn't have the lyrics yet, but I had the chord structure and all the bits. So we recorded the song instrumentally, and then I took it away and would listen to it over and over. And then I had like this anaphylactic allergic thing one day, and and couldn't breathe and went to hospital, and then that became the basis for the song, which kind of walks you through the whole situation.
So that actually did happen.
Yeah.
And were you gardening?
I was gardening, yeah. It was very warm Melbourne day.
Yeah.
And I have like weird allergies sometimes, and I don't know what happened, but I couldn't breathe and ended up in hospital, and it was very scary. But then, you know, a day later, it was a funny song.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. And what's the line in the ambulance? The woman, is it the ambulance officer says, "It's incredible that you can play guitar."
Oh yeah.
Did that happen?
Yeah, she the paramedic was, you know, trying to make me not terrified.
Yeah.
So she was trying to make small talk with me, and she and I said, I'm a musician, I play guitar, and she was like, wow, I've always wanted to play guitar, that's so cool. But you know, I thought I was really kind of, I couldn't breathe. It was really, I was crying. It was like, I thought I was dying. And being a musician felt a bit, it didn't, yeah, I just kind of looked at her and I was like, wow, you're amazing. I wish I could do, you know, what you do. I just sing songs and, you know, so.
I sometimes find, though, that when I'm in a time of great physical stress, it hasn't happened a lot, but it does give you a sort of sense of clear-headedness, and sometimes there can be a type of a wit or a creativity.
Yeah, like a grander idea.
What's a good time for you to write songs? Like, do you normally work like that, where you might have a melody or a musical passage and then you add the lyrics? Is there any clear way for you to write songs?
Not that I've discovered yet. I wrote Pedestrian at Best like that on the second album, and Music First, and then just kind of play it over and over and sing along to it. But I haven't come up with a solid structure, a formula. Yeah, just hope that something comes each time.
Is it getting easier? Is it getting harder?
I just think that sometimes some songs come easily and some don't. They make you go to a different place, and that you know, that makes it all the more worthwhile. Because if it got easier, I don't know if that would be much fun.
No. And will you be doing them every day, surely? Yeah. What about some of those early pats on the back, you know, Pitchfork, Q magazine? How was that? To be picked out and given that praise.
It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's of course it's kind of nice to get that reassurance.
Yeah.
As much as I guess we kind of say that we don't need it to for what we do to make any more meaning or sense, but it's definitely nice to kind of have the encouragement and that kind of helped take me overseas, and something that, you know, I never thought I would have been able to do otherwise. So.
And let's talk about the first album, recorded in 2014 with Burke Reed. Sometimes I sit and think, and sometimes I just sit. How did you feel when when you'd finished that record? Were you pleased with the way it sounded?
Yeah, I remember we left for this big 3-month tour or something overseas the day after we finished in the studio. So it was I did the Billy Bragg tour, and then we went straight into the studio, and then we went straight overseas for 3 months. So it was this big kind of, it was pretty stressful, I guess, and the Burke and Dan started mixing it while we were on tour, so the time difference of trying to listen to mixes and all of that. And I think we got it done, and I'm not sure. I think that lots of people go through that feeling of one day it's, you know, the greatest thing you've ever heard, and then the next day it's the most terrible thing you've ever heard, and what did you do? You got to go back and rewrite all the songs, and it kind of kept going back and forth like that, and I'd listen to it on tour and try to come up with the answer if it was terrible or great or somewhere in between, and but then I think then I released it. I guess you just got to make the art, put it out, get on with it and do the next thing. Of course.
Tell us about Dan Luscombe. What sort of role did he play and how important is he to your music?
Dan, back to the second EP, he, I forget how we met, just through Melbourne music friends, I guess. But I invited him to come and play guitar on History Eraser, I think, and then we were mixing that EP and with someone else, and it wasn't right, and I was a bit kind of upset and scared about what to do, and then I found out that he kind of knew how to mix and knew how to do those things. So I called him one day really timidly and asked if he would help work on it, and then we kind of did the rest of it from his bedroom, and we did Avant Gardener, and I recorded some of the vocals in his room. You can probably hear the 86 tram going past in some of the vocals. And so back to then, and then when I did my album, I asked if he wanted to, be involved in that.
Was he involved at all in any of the lyrics? Like, how do you work? Do you run ideas past people? You know, the lyrics, particularly for Depressed, and the first time I heard it, I remember I was really moved by it. Once you get into the house and you start to look at the ceiling and into the bathroom, and then you start wondering about the woman who owned the house and her son and Vietnam. Do those lyrics, do you bounce them off people?
No. Normally too kind of just a little bit too vulnerable kind of to share them until I feel like they're good enough. So it's normally when we're in the studio. I mean, maybe in rehearsals, but most of the time, unfortunately, the way that I seem to work is to be writing and refining lyrics right until I end up recording them, which is sometimes very stressful for everyone. But so normally, I've kind of always, the structure, the main kind of meat of the song is normally there, but Dan's amazing at kind of painting around and really matching the emotional height, of the lyrics and the story. And Dave and Bones as well. It's the other guys in the band. It's it's really, no one overplays, and it's a real kind of it's just always a kind of amazing process of everyone
working together.
Yeah, and working for the song, not for anything else, to make sure the song kind of comes across and does what it needs to.
Of course. Do the lyrics change? So you're saying you sometimes are refining them up until when they're recorded. What about then when you go out and do 30, 40, 60 gigs? You're performing on American TV, Ellen, Jimmy Fallon. Do you tweak the lyrics then?
Maybe a little bit, but I've never done anything too drastic, like Dylan or something, changing whole. But there's probably bits, and sometimes, because I don't like practicing things too much before we record, so no one really knows too much of what they're doing. which I like to do because I think it brings out this kind of honest performance. But then over time, everyone thinks of better parts and
Yes, yeah.
songs kind of, yeah.
One of the lyrics that really got to me on that first album, Put Me on a Pedestal and I'll Only Disappoint You, it really struck a chord, I know, with a lot of people. Can I ask who you were talking to?
I
You
don't think
have to answer.
I don't think it's a solid person or one. Most of my songs are not really about one person or one thing. I think that it kind of is a lot bigger than that, and that lyric especially would kind of talks to so many different ideas that it's hard to put into one, little box.
And so it should. Tell us about the global campaign for the release of Nobody Really Cares If You Don't Go to the Party. The poster's up all over the world, and there was busking in Camden. How did that unfold?
Yeah, we did. I think the idea was kind of to have the billboards in kind of places that were popular and kind of party, known as kind of party strips and or busy spots. And I just liked the concept, and I liked the non-branding of it. Like it wasn't like go and buy Courtney Barnett's new single. It kind of just felt like it was a little bit more interesting and
subversive.
Yeah, I had to really fight people to not have my name on it because I liked that it was just this weird kind of mysterious quote, and then we did a setup in Camden and did a performance of the song for the video, and that was fun. We'd kind of sent out a little email to my newsletter or people that we knew were in the area at the last minute, and told them there was a secret thing happening. So some of the people that turned up were people who'd kind of been following us around to shows, and it was great.
Was that a tough battle, convincing people who were presumably writing checks that you didn't want to have your name on it?
A little bit, but I think I'm lucky because I have managed to build this great team of a small but great team kind of around the world, and everyone who I work with kind of is pretty aware of who I am and how I like to kind of work, and the main focus for me is always the music and the songs and the art, and I think that I don't know anything like that. I think that everyone kind of is pretty open to taking my lead and
I suppose
running with it.
When you keep having victories, it proves your point. So the better you do, the more people will listen to you. I want to ask you a little bit about what influence you think other Australian acts have on you. Who do you feel, if you had to name a couple of acts that have influenced you?
Well, I remember one of my kind of earliest... So I grew up in Sydney, but I finished school in Hobart, and so I turned 18 in Hobart and started going to gigs there. And one of the first kind of rock and roll bands I saw was Magic Dirt in this little bar, and it kind of totally blew me away because I hadn't really seen much music. Like growing up, we went to like the ballet. My mum was a ballerina, so we kind of did that, and I thought that was cool and interesting. But we didn't go to, Mum and Dad didn't take us to like festivals or whatever.
Was there music in the house?
Yeah, a lot of jazz and classical, which I love.
Yeah.
And you know, listened to that a lot growing up, and but yeah, not even like I don't really remember any pop or rock, like not even Beatles or anything. I feel like maybe mum and dad listened to it a bit when they were younger, and then.
But not in the car, say.
No.
So you walk into this tiny pub and there's Adelita.
Yeah.
And Magic Dirt.
Putting a guitar on the roof, like it was great. So that and you know that the fact that I knew that they were from Melbourne or from Geelong, and not that far away, because everything else until then had been so distant. You know, it had been like the cover of Rolling Stone. I was really obsessed with Nirvana, and I'd buy any magazine in the shop that had Nirvana or Kurt Cobain on the cover, and everything was so far away and American or, you know, dead and just like, you know, timeless piece of history. So I wasn't really aware of that stuff, and even when I was young, you know, I listened to, like, if we listened to the radio, it would be something like Triple M or something really commercial, and I just, I don't know, it wasn't good. And
Didn't really speak to you.
No, and then I think it just took me a while to kind of find my my corner.
And you have. Do you think there is an Australian sound?
Yeah, I guess so.
How would you describe it if you had
It's
to?
a hard one to describe.
Yeah, I know.
But you can you know it when you hear it, I've never been out because so many people, it comes up being an Australian artist, obviously, but
someone once told me it was the sound of someone not taking themselves too seriously, taking the mickey, but having big heart.
Yeah.
And in a way, that could describe your music. There's a certain, you know, that you've probably heard it before, that sort of casual approach. But it's got heart.
Yeah. Yeah, that I feel like sometimes there's a bit of a fear of earnestness in Australian music, or that idea of being taken too seriously. I guess that kind of tall poppy thing, if you delve into it. But I don't know. Yeah, I think that kind of I like that the fine line between really vulnerable and then a bit of sarcasm.
Yes.
But not too much, you know. Sarcasm can be a bit of a lazy form. So it's a fine line between kind of finding the humour in whatever it is, those kind of darker moments or more serious kind of topics.
The next record. Do you have some thoughts? Some directions?
Yeah.
Some songs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got an album, pretty much.
Oh, you've got it. Have you recorded?
Yeah, I'm just kind of always trying to write. It's been travelling around and doing all this stuff's kind of, I don't know, it's been a little bit hard, but you know that I feel like this last year I've kind of been at home and not trying to say no to some things so that I can write and do some drawing and make some music and just have those moments of feeling like I'm not doing anything and get really down on myself and then I realised that I've in the last year made 3 albums. Made Jen's new album, did an album with Kurt, my friend Kurt Vile, and it's great. And just I don't know, I feel so lucky to be able to do that. It's to really, to just get together with friends and, you know, make some songs.
Yeah. Well, we are delighted that you're doing it. Thank you, Courtney Barnett.
Thank you.